And I think we have our eminent speaker of the closing session today. And we have with us Ma'am Mugdha Sinha, Senior IAS and Secretary of Science and Technology and Art and Culture in Government of Rajasthan. Uh, Madam Mugdha Sinha is wonderfully, I think, doing a collaboration of science with arts and culture because she is heading both the departments in Rajasthan. Hello, ma'am. And if anybody knows about Rajasthan and things happening in Rajasthan, nobody will be unaware about the initiatives that Rajasthan is taking in the field of art and culture and science and technology from long time. And there are several initiatives which are a very good collaboration of science with arts and arts with science. And that is the vision of a person who is sitting with us right now, Mugdha Sinha ji, who is taking great interest in both these things. And the people of Rajasthan, and personally, I am also in Rajasthan, so I can personally witness it, and I can personally uh, tell everybody that how beautiful experience Rajasthan's people are experiencing in terms of art and culture and science and technology in the state. So I think this closing session is all about interacting with Muktaji on the topic art and science, innovating through collaboration. And I welcome you, first of all, Mugdha Sinha ji, Secretary of Science, Technology and Art and Culture. From a busy schedule, you spend time for us, and we'll be glad to have your wonderful thoughts and to interact with you and to welcome you. I have here this panel Dr. Ravi Gupta, CEO and founder of Elets Technomedia. So he will be welcoming you, and then we'll have an honor to have your talk, and then some Q&A at the end. So Dr. Ravi Gupta, please welcome, madam.
Mugdha ji, and it's an honor to have you with us again. Thank you so much, and we are very, very excited to listen to you as usual. Just a small logistical request: if you can make your phone horizontal, we will have a bigger picture of yours. Yeah, yes. Put your phone on the auto rotate, please, and we will have a bigger picture if you put your phone horizontal. Yes. Great, fantastic. So let me ask you the first question that you are heading art and culture in Rajasthan, and you are also heading science and technology. So what are the synergies you see between these two very different topics? Mugdha ji, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, and thank you, and many congratulations for your Global Leadership Summit 2021. I'm really honored to be invited to your platform to speak about a subject which is of, which deeply resonates with me. I'm sorry I have to operate from a mobile phone today because of certain reasons, because I'm not in Jaipur. You know what, if you read Albert Einstein, he said something very interesting. He said that it is not art or science, it is art and science, because art and science are the roots which emerge from the same tree branch, right? It is only after we reach a certain technical advancement in both art and science that the two fields begin to merge in its aesthetics, right? And begin to solve problems of society, move from more concrete to more abstract. And that is actually the cutting edge from where we start to find solutions to problems. Art is able to do it in its own terrain, science is able to do it in its own terrain. And very often it is said that in maths you have a Venn diagram, right? And there is an intersection of the Venn diagram, and where the art and science meet is called design. In the field of administration, where these two things come together is in the policy architecture that we all have. So I don't see, a lot of people asked me when, I was very fortunate to be given this opportunity by the government to become Secretary Art and Culture, because I was already Secretary Science and Technology. So a lot of people asked me, how is it that the government has given you responsibilities which are very, very diverse? So I used to give them an example saying that the brain has, a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, right? And the right hemisphere is basically all your logic and everything, and the left hemisphere is all your art and aesthetics and everything, emotions. So because these two come together, that the body is able to function and do the various roles. So there is no divergence. In fact, the idea is convergence and collaboration. So using this to just give you an example of the synergy that you are asking me, what we have done in Rajasthan is to popularize science using art and to popularize art using science and technology. I will give you just one example to, elucidate my point or to validate my point, and that is that we started in January of this year something called Night Sky Astro Tourism. We didn't do anything much. What we did is we brought out our, telescopes, and we installed them in various places of historical importance, like the tourist places where visitors go. By combining an activity of astronomy, of science with the cultural and art activity, where we were able to bring the audiences, the stakeholders, the citizens. Science calls it science communication, and science calls it citizen science. Art calls us using technology and science into art for, popularization of both. So I think these are very, very imaginary boundaries which people have made. We are today moving from an age of knowledge to an age of imagination and creativity. And if you read Nikolai Tesla, you will figure out that geniuses are ones who can imagine the world, right? So we are living in an age of imagination. We have to imagine that the art and science are together, and beyond the technicalities, there is a move of what you call multidisciplinary approach towards problem solving, and in that there cannot be any segregation or any silos.
Fantastic. This is amazing. I love this idea of having a telescopes on historical sites, and people enjoying both the art and the science. And since we talk about Rajasthan is a land of palaces, and the palaces, we see those grand palaces who have been scientifically designed so well, and also have a very high level of art and architecture inbuilt inside them. So I think they are also a great place to see the synergy, how they have combined the science and art. Let me ask you the next question, that India and globe is facing a huge pandemic since the last 1.5 years, and our many things which have been happening are getting disrupted. The whole world is getting disrupted, and so being in this position of leading the science and technology department, and of course art and culture department, how do you see the role of technology getting adopted in a bigger way in both these departments, and for reaching out to the citizens, for reaching out to all the stakeholders? So your views on this.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question, because I think suddenly we have, we have realized post the COVID that our outreach, because we are living in a world of being physically distant. Of course, socially we are connected, and how we are connected socially, because there is a physical, bar on traveling, on meeting people. So you are homebound. So you are in isolation, but you are connected, right? Physically distant and socially connected. And how has that been possible? That has been possible through digital technology, right? Also, if you look at the fact that a lot of companies, since the first lockdown happened last year, issued guidelines for people working from home, right? So work from home has also been made possible by digital technology. If you look at my Department of Art and Science, unfortunately, in the last 1 year, where I have been Director General of Jawahar Kala Kendra and Ravindra Rangmanch and Department of Art and Culture, I have realized that Jawahar Kala Kendra has been open for a very, very short time of, say, almost 2 months in the entire 1 year period, where we celebrated what you say, the anniversary of Jawahar Kala Kendra, if you remember, on 8th of April. We did the Women's Day on 8th of March. We did so many things in that brief period of 2 months. But, out of 12 months, 2 months is a very, very short time. But despite that, using technology, we were able to engage all the four corners of art, artists, audience through art administration. Yeah, which is one of the pillars which enables this to happen. So we also went and adopted technology. We also went and started doing things that will be required. In fact, there is a survey which was done, and some artists shared that survey with me. It was a global survey done by one of the universities abroad. It says that during this period of lockdown, the audiences wanted the maximum number of events which were attended by the audiences were related to baking. Because one, it was art. Second, it was related to food. The moment I read that essay, I said, okay, let's try a session on baking virtually, right? And it was one of the very heavily attended sessions. You also look at the fact that there is a lot of stress on individuals and institutions. There is a whole lot of emphasis on mental health. So using technology, we reached out and we did what is called expressive art therapy using technology. So technology is a provider of a platform. We have to make a distinction because, your creative process, what you need to connect the art to the artists. There is this writer called Anish Pradhan who has written a book called On Ragas, where he's talking of the ecosystem of the classical Hindustani music community. And he says, while it is very important for the artist to be able to bring out his art in the public sphere, right? It is equally important for the artist to have appreciative audience and an audience which can financially support the art and the artists, right? We are living in very, very paradoxical times because, if you look at the Pareto optimal cake of the funds which are available with the government, you will find that most of the concentration of the funds has gone for medical and health issues, right? A very small portion of the funds have come to us for the simple reason that although we think of mental health issues as a problem of medical and health, but actually they can be addressed through art and culture, because art and culture is therapeutic, right? So I think technology is a lever, it is a platform which can enable greater outreach to the stakeholders. The importance in these times is that the government is able to connect with the people. Artists need the bread and butter, right? We as a culture, as a civilization in these times need to preserve our art, because if the artist goes hungry, then the art will die with the artist, right? And the audiences need to remain sane. And that they can only do if you give them, apart from the roti, kapra, makan, and the dawai, and the dua, if you also give them a little tadka of art, maybe it can make their daily lives, which are very, very tough and challenging, a little better. It is like the icing on the cake, or maybe it is like a dessert in their normal khana. So art is that important, and technology coming together with art is able to do that. So art is like the food, and the Swiggy delivery boys is like technology, right? Taking it out, the food that is being cooked in the restaurant is art, which is the artists are doing in their house. And the technology becomes like the Swiggy delivery boys, which takes it to where it is required, where it will be appreciated, where it will be paid for. So that is how technology. Also, One more example I'll give you. Their audiences and people who are listening to this session need to understand that these divisions are man-made for the simple reason when you talk of conservation of monuments, right? Because Rajasthan has a lot of monuments which need conservation. Chune Gare ki buildings need conservation. The moment you talk of conservation, it is not just art, right? There is a science behind conservation. Even in simple construction of houses, if you want a good house that will last you, then you need to have a proper proportion of how much cement and how much sand. 4 ek ka masala banega, 3 ek ka banega, 2 ka banega. That is where your science comes in. The aesthetics of how you decorate the building, what kind of design you have, that is art. So even in the basic construction of a house, the art and science come together in what is called design. So this segregation or separation doesn't work. I think we all need to come together because the stakeholder, the last man standing for whom we are doing all this, he wants a solution to the problem. He doesn't want to know how you did it. He's only interested in knowing that you did it, right? So I think that is what we must keep in mind, and that is very, very important. And the role of the policy administrator or architecture is to be able to understand what is required by the stakeholder, also to be able to anticipate in the future, right? Like what will be required 5 years from now, and sow the seeds now, not just live in the present, because somebody has said that an instant is a moment in which the future becomes the past, right? So we have to anticipate for the future. If I'm able to think 5 years ahead of my time, then after 5 years, I will, when I reach those 5 years, I will be prepared because I sowed the seeds now. That is the role of an administrator, whether he's a science administrator or she's an art administrator.
Fantastic. You mentioned about that an artist needs an ecosystem and it needs an audience who can appreciate it. And for that, it's very important to have art communication.
Yes.
As we need science communication. So how are you looking at reaching out to the youth, the school students, the university students, that they appreciate our Indian culture, our Indian artistic heritage and our scientific heritage? So how do you is there a agenda or a program to do it?
Yes. This is a very, interesting question for the simple reason that, if you look at our ancient monuments, right, any ancient monument, there are so many principles of science embedded in the way that they have been constructed, but today we only look at them as, sites of tourism or as places of visits, but we've forgotten the science behind them. Today we are so heavily mechanized that to build buildings, you need scaffolds in the building, you need cranes. But imagine those times when you have built such tall buildings and you did not have cranes. You only had elephants, right? You have made, for example, the Kailash, the Ellora and the Ajanta temples at Kailash. You will see in Aurangabad, in Maharashtra, they are carved out of a single stone. Who made those monuments? How it was possible? You go down to South and you will find there are so many monuments. There is one particular monument which is raised, and you can actually take a cloth from underneath it, and the monument doesn't fall. You have a monument of 1,000 pillars. You take one pillar and it starts, all the pillars start, resounding with sound. How is that possible? How did they achieve that? It is amazing. In fact, I was reading a book very recently on the Sumerian civilization, and it was the first civilization to have urbanization and agriculture and irrigation. And they were the ones who gave us this idea of the 24 hours in a day kind of an idea. They were the first to have an alloy of bronze and to do metallurgy. They were the first to actually have a cuneiform civilization. So we were even more enlightened, say some 5,000 years back. This is very interesting. So when you look at certain things, you cannot look at them from a unidimensional perspective. And the more we talk about these things, more we look at things from a very holistic perspective, we will figure out that they are full of wisdom and knowledge, and they combine aspects of art, design, architecture, ethnography, cultural mythologies, and also principles of science, right? I think what we need to do is what we are actually working on is digitizing our museums, taking this information to people, where we'll bring live models of those museums. We have already started work because this is part of our budget announcements. We are working with a society that does that. That is done for Government of India. We are working with them. And we hopefully want to bring this knowledge to the public domain very, very soon. Technology is very, very, while it is not very time consuming, it is a guzzler of funds, because it is very, very advanced. So with artificial intelligence, with a lot of technology happening in sound, so much is happening in sound today. You have like a WhatsApp group, you have something called Clubhouse, which does not do text chats, it only does sound chats, right? So much of advancement is happening all around you. So I think technology will become very, very important in times to come, because it will become very embedded in how we live our lives, right? With fire came cooked food. With technology will come lot of things, but we have to be scary, or maybe a little worry of the underside of technology, as I say it, right? Because today, if you send audio notes, your audio notes are leaving carbon footprints. Today, if you do a biometric somewhere, you are leaving your carbon footprints, right? So your privacy is getting impacted with technology entering your bedrooms, entering your offices, entering your spaces. So I think we have to be slightly cautious of how we use technology, but technology is a wonderful lever. It can, help us in science communication, because virtual platforms have helped us to reach many more people. So earlier, the programs that DST Rajasthan and Department of Art and Culture Rajasthan was doing only for people of Rajasthan, today, because we are an online platform, our voices are being heard down south, in West Bengal, in Telangana, in Kerala. We have artists who are joining us from everywhere. So I think that is something very good, because it will open for our artists and scientists of Rajasthan platforms beyond the state boundaries. Our artists can make outreach in the international markets also. So I think technology can do a leapfrog for a lot of our artists. It can be a springboard for a lot of artists, and for a lot of art to garner attention and focus. And that is what is required. Our artists and scientists need new problems, new solutions. They need new platforms, new audiences, new markets for them to prosper. And I think our job is only to become a facilitator to enable them to make outreach to different audiences, to different markets, so that they can be secure, their art can be secure, and they can be financially provided for.
Are you looking at some collaborations with the colleges, universities, or your higher education or college department in the government, so that there is an institutional mechanism in which the outreach of art and the artist, and the outreach of the science and the scientist happens in a more institutionalized fashion?
Yes, absolutely. See, our stakeholders are very varied. Science is only one vertical of education, right? And research is our job in the Department of Science and Technology is basically to be a service provider to all other departments, right? So we are happy to help departments who are looking for some solutions. We are happy to help them, to agencies, to research organizations, to research institutions, and all our job happens in the colleges and the universities. So we have various cohorts which connect colleges and universities. And right now you will see on our Twitter handle that we are doing 100 lectures on various aspects of science with INIAS, which is an academy of sciences in India. So with them, we are instituted. It began yesterday, I think, and we will continue these 100 lectures. We did a similar set of lectures last year. So students can gain knowledge on things which are taught maybe in a very stereotypical fashion in colleges. They can gain more knowledge, gain more information. We are also have what you call the SAT form, in which we used to earlier in pre-lockdown times record lectures. So we had about 900 hours of lectures which have been recorded, which are available for colleges and for schools, for anybody who wants to get coached in science subjects, maybe also coach for UPSC in science subjects. So that is also possible. We have huge resources, and we have connected colleges and universities to each other. It is also very important that the universities and colleges connect to each other and know and work in unison, because some universities might have expertise or human resources or infrastructure in something. Some universities may have it in some other thing, but universities, because they live in a competitive environment, they don't usually talk to each other. But when the government brings about that interaction, then they come together, because it's the government helping them to know each other. So this is what we have done with our cohorts. We have an agri cohort with 7 universities of agriculture and veterinary. We have engineering cohort with 45 universities all across and colleges all across Rajasthan. We have a biotech cohort. We have an IPR cohort. We give money for infrastructure. We give money for researches. We were doing it in the last year, in 2019 to 20, when we didn't have lockdown. I was going to each and every college on a very regular basis, visiting them, understanding. But with lockdown, it got impacted. So we don't meet so often, but we do virtually a lot of meetings, and we we align their research proposals. So we are doing everything that is required to be done, but probably more needs to be done. And also universities and colleges need to align themselves with the government priorities. So a lot of research now needs to happen in areas which will be important in times to come, and those need to be demarcated. See, what happens is, when a person is specializing in something, he only wants to work in those areas, right? But we have to align ourselves to what the government, where is the government's priority? The government's priority is today post-COVID management in health, well-being, and mental awareness, in general well-being of the people, in pulmonary health, in maybe better environmental management. So I think that is what we need to focus our research on. And those will be areas of importance in times to come. And that is where I would urge universities to collaborate with DST. And when we come to art and culture, we have to realize that this lockdown, this COVID that came about, actually captured us in our houses, and it can happen again anytime. So we need to be prepared with our sources of entertainment. The audiences need to understand that entertainment will now happen virtually, if at all we are again locked down in some time. So we need to devise ways technologically to be able to entertain and engage, and to be able to involve the artists and the audiences on same platform, which are equally accessible to all. So issues of equality and equity will also come into the picture, because while I might have a phone, I'm able to engage from here, not many artists are able to afford it. So how do we bring them on board? That is something that we will have to look at. Those are issues that still need resolution, and that is where we'd like to work with people who have solutions to offer for the same.
Amazing. And in the you have a state which is a very highly tourism oriented state, and you are also the hub of the art and culture of India. So how do you align the art and culture department with the tourism agenda? How do you bring them together?
Yeah. So the tourism, art and culture are, I would say, they might be doing different things administratively, but the monuments belong to us. But the visitors who go become part of the tourism. So I don't see how they are different. So the management, because administratively you might require management at different levels, because one person then might be bogged down with too much of work. So that might be the idea. But I think art and culture is the basis for tourism. Without art and culture and an evolutionary, dynamic, fluid civilization happening, there cannot be any tourism, right? So tourism is doing what they can do best with policies and facilitation and inviting, visitors, and maybe building the infrastructure, because tourism means you should have better mobile facilities, you should have better bus movements, or connectivity, you should have better places of stay, there should be cleanliness, you should have guides who should. Our job is to maintain the monuments where people come. Our job is to give them a different experience every time they come to a monument, because how will repeat tourism happen? Repeat tourism will, see, if I go and see Amer once, I've seen Amer once, right? How the idea is, how do I make Amer attractive for people to visit it again and again, right? So I have to think of experiential tourism. And experiential tourism, so the idea is that I think of something I can do using art and culture, maybe have Kalbelia's dance on special moonlit nights, or maybe have what you call night sky astrotourism to attract more tourists. So if tourists are coming only in the daytime, and it's sunny in the daytime, not many people are coming, then I do something at night to attract them to at night. Maybe do a mushaira, maybe do a book discussion, maybe make it attractive, maybe do a dance performance, maybe light up the monument. So the cultural aspects will enable tourists to come back again and again to the same monument. And that is the role of the Department of Art and Culture, to bring also, because I think when any tourist comes, he's not just interacting with a monument, right? He's also interacting with an entire history, and history is incomplete without people being in it, right? They would like to see what kind of people. So anybody who comes from Himachal to Rajasthan would be interested in clicking pictures of Rajasthani women, the pagdis, the safas, and maybe figuring out the tie and dye, right? Shopping experiences. So the idea, or also, if I can do little block printing classes and tell them that you come to Jaipur, you can make your own scarf and go back, right? So that those are new elements. So tourism and art and culture is all about novelty, giving a new experience to a visitor every time he comes, so that he wants to keep coming back, right? So this idea of making them keep coming back is the job of the Department of the Art and Culture, is what I think. And that is where I can use my technology and my science to make it attractive for people. Like light and sound is what we started doing in olden times, right? To make monuments attractive at night for the tourists. Astrotourism is what we have done now. And maybe later we will also digitize our monuments and our museums, so people can go to Amer and see a museum in Alwar just by clicking on a television, or sit at home and watch. So maybe all those things will happen. Technology is pretty much evolving. Ideation is part of art and culture. Imagination becomes very important, because technology is nothing without imagination.
And let me ask you a different question, which is around usage of IT in governance. Like in the last 1.5 years, because of pandemic, people are not going to the offices, and interaction between government and citizens has reduced, and it is like happening, a lot of it is online. So how do you see that COVID as a transformational catalyst for ICT in governance? What's your view on this?
Yes, I think it has what you say, ushered in a different kind of an experience. What could have taken, say, maybe another 3 or 4 years, it has just hurried the process, rushed the process, because it became urgent. And we all know when enough attention is not paid to important and things like these happen, then everything becomes urgent. And because it has become urgent, people have been in a way compelled to join it, because it has become the need of survival, right? But I think there's much that needs to be done, because we still see that we still have aggregators. And also see, ICT will depend on 3 things, which I've always been emphasizing. There is software, new developments in software have happened already. And that is why we have all these virtual platforms. You have the AI, which is happening. You have MR, you have VR and all AR, everything is happening. There's technologies in sound, which are happening. But the point is how popular they have become, how acceptable they have become with people will depend on how good infrastructure the government has and how good infrastructure the people have. The infrastructure that people have will depend on bandwidth connectivity, Wi-Fi, whether villages also have proper Wi-Fi, because for sessions like these, for audiences to join and watch this, they need Wi-Fi, right? Unless you send them a link and make it viral on WhatsApp or something like that, to be able to join live in, that is what you will need. And our villages still don't have, many of our villages don't have basic facilities, and Wi-Fi has now become roti, kapra, makan and Wi-Fi. Right? Of course, dawa dua remains, but this is very, very important now, because, you know, everything that you need, right from accessing doctors, you know, imagine Jaisalmer, which is so sparse, such a sparse district. I mean, if you have to go visit a doctor in these times and compare that with having a teleconsultation, you'd much rather prefer a teleconsultation, right? So you need smartphones. How many of a population has smartphones? How many people can afford smartphones? So accessibility and affordability of hardware will become very, very important. And that is why it is important that manufacturing should take place in India, so that all the important innovations that are taking place can be homebred and home manufactured, so they can be cheaply available to the public. That is very, very important. So the two types of investment. One is common investment. Say optical fiber government has to lay. That is a investment by the government. But there are private investments, like I have to buy a mobile phone. I have to buy a laptop. So many people today who are studying, see, education had become pretty much universal in India. But when this lockdown came, you found that a lot of poor people who did not have laptops or phone were not able to access education, right? So it has taken us forward in many ways and also backward in many ways. And these are things for which we will have to find solutions, right? The other thing about technology is the peopleware, right? Every time you do new things, you let out a new form, people have to understand, people have to fill it. So upgradation of technology is also very, very cumbersome for people to understand it, to adopt it, to change themselves. Not many people are, very, very friendly with changing with times. It takes them some time. So I think we will have to keep all these things in mind. ICT is here to stay, but I think our imagination should make it easy for the people. That is the role of all people who are doing innovation. And that is where the customer feedback, the stakeholder feedback will become very, very important in times to come.
I think we can end this session here. I think I have enjoyed this interaction so much and learned a lot. And your views about synergy between art and science are very, very interesting. So handing it over to Karthik. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We would like to
Thank
present a speaker certificate to you before we close this first day of Governance Leadership Summit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So,
Thank you.
audience, here we close this the first day. See you tomorrow 9:30 with the second day address. Thank you so much, Madam.
Thank you.